What's up, guys? Welcome to the Chess Giant. This is Solomon Ordell, and in today's video we're covering another instructive Czech defense game played by none other than Grandmaster Robert Akopian. He was going up against Daniel Ludwig back in the year of 2007, round 5 at the World Open. I mean, this is a big game, and here his opponent Ludwig starts this thing off with e4. We actually see here Akopian start this thing off with a regular Pirc, right? d6, knight f6, putting some pressure on e4. But guys, with the Czech defense, we're not playing this move of g6, which is what white sees most of the time, but instead this very underrated option of c6, which prepares this move of queen a5, pinning this knight to the king on e1, which actually just threatens this pawn on e4, right? I mean, if white here just messes around with a move like knight f3, we're going to take this pawn on e4 and simply be up material, and white's going to have nothing to show for it. So, okay, white responds here with this move of bishop d3, but now the second reason we see this move of queen a5 is now seen as we have this move of e5. Notice that this queen and the pawn are supporting the central push. We're putting pressure on f4 and d4, and here white responds with knight f3, in which case, guys, we cannot play passive chess. My number one piece of advice for you Czech defense players is to not play passive. We can't play moves here like knight bd7, bishop e7, h6. We got to put the pressure on white. We've pinned this knight on c3. We're putting pressure on f4 and d4. Let's pin this knight on f3 as well. Bishop g4 is played. Here we see a pawn capture on e5 from both sides, and white now continuing with h3 in this case. Okay, let's just snatch off the knight and continue with this move of knight bd7. Very natural developmental chess. Here white plays this move of bishop d2. Ludwig here really trying to eye this queen on a5. And guys, if you look at master and grandmaster level games, the most popular option here for black is actually queen c7, right? Our queen's under fire. Let's drop this queen back. But here, guys, Akopian doesn't really care, and he in fact just continues with this move of castling queenside. Now, many of you are probably wondering, okay, wait, is black in trouble after this move of knight d5? This is actually what was played in the game, but it turns out that black does have a couple of different options. One of them is this move of queen c5, but queen a4 is actually better. Here, Akopian putting some pressure on e4 and putting this queen in a pretty nice spot. Notice here, this queen cannot move anywhere at the moment, but how can white attack it? I mean, if they play a move like knight c3, we have queen a5, and okay, I mean, if white wants to go for that, we're going to get a perpetual, potentially, if black wants to go for that option. And here, if we see a move like b3, we can simply drop our queen into a square like a3, and these dark squares are starting to get really weak. So here from white, we see this move of knight captures on f6, and here black can take back with a knight, but we actually see this move of g captures on f6. Very interesting option. You don't see it a ton at the grandmaster level, where you voluntarily double up your pawns in a position like this. This pawn on f6 seems very weak, and in fact, white continues here with f takes e5, but yet again, guys, we are playing active chess. In the Czech, guys, we cannot play passive. We got to put the pressure on the opponent's pieces as quickly as we can. And guys, notice here, this king has not castled. So we see this move of knight captures on e5, putting pressure on both the queen and the bishop. And this does give up a pawn, but it turns out that this was actually a big mistake from white, because all of a sudden, guys, this move of queen d4 is seen on the board, and white cannot castle. It can't castle to g1 to the king side of the board, obviously, because our queen literally eyes that square. And if a move like castling queenside, or even just keeping the king in the center on e1, we have knight takes d3 with check, followed by simply snatching off this queen. White here needs to figure out what to do against queen d4. We're currently threatening knight takes d3 with check, and castling queenside simply doesn't solve the problem. Another option here that white could have went with is king d1, right? Just trying to get this king out of the check. Obviously now, if a move like knight takes d3, queen takes d4 would be an option. But in this case, we can actually just snatch off the pawn on b2, right? This rook on a1 is not defended because the king is in the way. This rook on a1 is going to be forced to move somewhere like to c1. And in that case, we can now take on d3. Whole idea being, yet again, you take on d3. Thank you for the queen. And if you take the queen, our knight now gets out of the capture area. We actually give a check to white, and we're simply at 3 points of material. Absolutely crushing game for black here. So guys, we have this key position in which case white captures off this pawn, but we now play queen d4. White cannot castle kingside, queenside, or even play this move of king d1. Instead, we see this move of king e2, white trying to connect the rooks. Whole idea being, if we take on b2, we're actually not threatening to win a rook now, because the rook obviously defends it from all the way over to the other corner of the board. But here from black, okay, I mean, we could take on d3, but notice, guys, there's no rush. If we take on d3, we're simply trading down queens, and this is one of those positions where I encourage players to ask themselves, are you attacking or are you defending? right? Now, guys, if you're attacking, you want to keep pieces on the board, especially your queen, because you're trying to have as much firepower as you possibly can go against the enemy king. Now, if you're defending, you want to trade down, right? You want to simplify, you want to go into an endgame. Guys, here white wants to trade down. Why would we just start trading off pieces when we're trying to checkmate this king on e2? Instead, here we see this move of bishop c5, starting to mount the pressure. This doesn't really threaten anything, but it simply puts more pressure on white, and it makes it harder for white to come up with defensive options. I mean, just a move ago, an option like bishop e3 could have been possible, but now it isn't. A move like queen f2 could have been a potential option, but now yet again, with this battery ram, it's simply not possible. We see this move of rook h2 f1, and yet again, guys, we could take on d3, but guys, we're going to have a queen trade. We want to take on d3, and here white simply doesn't have enough defending pieces for it, but if we do that, we're going to get a more simple game. So instead, guys, what do? Before taking on d3? We get rid of this queen, and we do this by playing rook g8, followed by rook g6. This queen is forced to move. It cannot stay along this diagonal. I mean, if you take on e5, thank you for the queen, and it obviously can't go to g7 or h8 without being captured. So we see this move of queen f5 with check, but in this case, we see Akopian continue with rook d7, keeping this king safe, and now against rook a d1, finally capturing on d3. Notice here, guys, just how much trouble white is in right now. We got rid of this queen from that square of f6 by playing rook g8 and rook g6. So now this queen has no hope of trading down. We take on d3, and here if white just captures back, we have queen captures with check, forcing king e1, and we can now play rook e6. I mean, talk about active, aggressive, and attacking chess. Attacking this pawn on e4, pouncing down on that square. If we see a move like rook f4 from white, trying to hang on to it, okay, we play bishop e3, attacking both this rook and the bishop on d2. You want to take on e3. We have a ton of ideas, including just queen captures on e3, followed by rook takes d1. Guys, white is in major, major trouble. So against this move of knight takes d3, we actually see this move of bishop h6, a desperation play from our guy, Daniel Ludwig. But guys, in this case, we're actually not going to take off this bishop. If we take the bishop, we're going to lose the knight, and our attacking chances are starting to dwindle a little bit. Instead, we see this move of rook f6. Very nice idea from black, really putting the pressure on white. And at first sight, many of you are probably wondering, okay, wait, why can't white just take this rook off the board? Why are we just handing white a rook? You told me we're not going to trade, but why would you just give me a piece? Well, the reason for this is that we're now distracting the queen from the square of e4. In this case, we're simply going to capture back, force this king over to d2. We have knight b4 check, and this game is going to be over only one move later. So guys, this move of rook f6, it may seem like a free rook, but if you take it, you're going to get your king checkmated no matter what after this. What about this move of rook captures on d3? Does this work? Well, in this case, we actually have this idea of rook captures on f5. Look, if you want to take this rook, we're going to have a queen and you're not. And if you take our queen off the board, we're not going to take this rook on d4, but instead the rook on f1. White here has a choice on which rook they want to take, but it doesn't really matter which one they choose. Obviously, if they take on f1, we're simply going to capture off this rook on d4 with either the bishop or the rook, and we're simply going to be up a full 5 points in material. And on the flip side, guys, if a move like rook takes d7 is played, we're not going to take on d7. I think a lot of beginner players may be tempted to just play a move like, okay, we have the rook, let's just take this rook off the board. Guys, we're also going to lose our rook on f1 if we take this rook on d7. Why not save our rook by playing rook f2 at check and then take the rook on d7? Here, black yet again with a crushing game. So y'all, this move of rook f6 is absolutely crushing for black. You can't take the rook unless you want to get mated, and you can't take on d3 with the rook unless you want to face rook takes f5, rook takes f1, and rook f2 check idea. So here we see this move of c3, but yet again, black here, Akopian, very strong grandmaster player, continuing with knight c1 check, the best possible move in this position. White has a lot of things they can try to do, but they're all simply losing. I mean, look, you want to play a move like king e1, we have a mate in 1 by simply capturing off that rook. You want to play a move like king f3, we can actually play rook takes f5 with check, and then we're going to have a queen, and you're simply not. You can also try to play a move like rook takes c1, but in this case, we're simply going to continue by queen d3 with check, and saying thank you for the rook. And finally, guys, if a move like bishop takes c1, which is what was played in the game, we now have queen c4. Again, guys, it may be easy to just go, oh my gosh, there's a queen. Why not take it off the board? Guys, why not save one of our pieces if we can do that as well, right? If we take the other queen, we're going to lose ours. Why not get our queen safe? Simply throw in a little check there and then take this queen one move later. Here, guys, white resigns the game. There's simply no hope. I mean, this king has to move, and then we're simply going to win that queen. Here, play a move like rook d3 check, and this game is going to be over very quickly. A very nice Czech defense game by Grandmaster Robert Akopian. Thank you guys for watching today's video, and special thanks to everyone who has become a patron. My goal is to make this chess thing go full time, and y'all are helping me create better chess content and drop it more often. If you'd like to check out the theory behind the Czech defense, click that video to the left. If you'd like to see my entire Czech defense playlist, click that playlist to the right. Leave a comment down below to let me know what other videos you'd like to see covered on this channel. And as always, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.